This podcast deals with themes, languages, and situations that may not be suitable for young audiences. If you're under the age of 18, parental guidance isn't going to help you here. And welcome to Now Open the Podcast, the sex education podcast that's more sex than education. Trisha?
My name is Gabim.
And I am Kai.
All right, guys, we're back again for another Tuesday.
Been a week.
It's been a whole week. I've missed you already. How did you spend your week away from me, Jabim?
Just thinking about you and the podcast, obviously. You know, that's all I do. I live, eat, sleep, breathe this podcast.
What about you, Kai? What did you do the whole week?
I was chilling. School started now for my MA, so I've been working on that. Other than that, I've been hanging out with my dog.
Wow.
I've been doing
Nerd.
You're the one who listens to the podcast 24/7. Who's the nerd now?
What did you do this week?
I actually saw some high school friends for the first time during the entire pandemic.
Oh God, I love seeing high school friends.
Yeah, no,
Actually,
it was
that
great.
depends. Seeing high school friends is like a double-edged sword because on one hand, if you're doing really well, you love to see your high school friends. You love to be like, yeah, that's what I'm doing now, and that's what I'm up to, and I'm super cool, and I'm not the person that you used to know in high school and stuff. But then there's also, if you're like doing poorly, you're like, yeah, man. I can't elaborate the poorly because it's explicit. But yeah, so how was your reunion? Were you on the?
Oh no, well these are like literally my high school barkada. We talk all the time. We're constantly in communication.
Oh, okay.
So it's all good, but it's really funny because we did bring up a lot of past beef that we used to have in grade school and high school.
Grade school?
Yeah,
grade school beef?
because we've been friends since grade school.
Remember the time you stole my sandwich, you bitch?
No, dude, it was literally like that. It was literally, do you remember the time you got my lunchbox and then spit a bunch of water at it? And I'm like, oh my God, this is gonna happen. And remember when we fought about this? And my ex-girlfriend is actually one of my barkada. So she brought up all the stupid love letters I used to write her. And my girlfriend was there and she was like, that sounds like Trisha. And I'm like, please stop ganging up against me. Stop reading the letters.
No.
But it was fun. It was fun. It was really great catching up. I didn't realize how much I had missed that kind of friendship, the kind of people who've known you your entire life.
Yeah.
Since you used to like eat boogers and shit.
Those truly are the relationships to maintain.
Yeah, and here we are 17 years later, and we're still all really, really good friends. So that was really fun. But yeah, that was pretty much it for my week. But I'm really, really just excited to do this because every week we have a really interesting conversation. And tonight, Jabim, I think you're going to have a lot to say.
This week, actually, I am prepared. I have you can't see it, but I'm wearing my learning hat. I am fully prepared to be educated on a lot of things because the most I know about periods comes from The Office, and that's that bears can smell the menstruation. Oh, no, that's from Anchorman.
Oh, yes.
The bears can smell the menstruation, and that's why it's not safe to have women in the workplace.
You regularly work around a lot of bears?
Yeah, well, I'm scared of bears, so like better safe than sorry, right? I mean,
there have been 0 bear sightings, but that's because you have no women at work.
You know, Winnie the Pooh's shirt used to be white.
Oh, I hate you so much.
Anyway, yeah, so I'm prepared to learn. I'm prepared to learn tonight, and I hope we don't get carried away.
Oh, that was a great
wow.
reference. Honestly, I think a lot of us are really ready to be schooled tonight because, Kai and I, we have periods. We've been having periods for, I don't know, the better part of 2 decades now.
Yeah, periods are like that weird middle child of bodily functions in that
Mm-mm.
they happen to every single woman since the dawn of time, and yet it's still shrouded in so much mystery or misinformation. I'd say there's still a certain
Right.
sort of taboo or stigma attached to it that it's dirty, it's gross to talk
Disgusting.
about.
Don't talk about
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's nice that we get to
Learn a thing or two.
demystify the period.
Absolutely. But before we go into that, I'm really, really excited to announce that we actually have a giveaway for this episode.
Nice.
So thanks to our partners at Sinaya Cup, we are giving away a free menstrual cup to one now open customer. So all you have to do to win a Sinaya Cup is to, number one, share the podcast video link. So that's the Facebook link where you're currently watching. Make sure to share it on either Twitter or Facebook. Then tag both Now Open and Sanaya so that we can see it. And make sure to caption it with any insight that you learned tonight about periods or menstrual cups, especially. So,
And hey, it's not just for people who menstruate. They also make excellent shot glasses. So, try to win one anyway.
it's a very expensive shot glass, but
Indestructible
absolutely.
shot glasses. I mean, like, people always break them because you're drunk.
Exactly.
You're
This
drinking.
one you can just drop it on the floor
And it'll bounce right away.
re-sanitize it.
Yeah, it's great.
So if you want to win a zero waste menstrual cup from Sanaya, I left the instructions in the comments. You have until March 8th, so that's next Monday to do it. And we're going to be announcing the winner on our March 9 episode, so make sure to tune in for that. All right. But before we go on to the conversation, there's just this little segment we like to do in Now Open where we talk about stuff that's happening in the outside world, because the outside world, which is right now everything is in the outside world when you work from home. So for tonight's newsstand, I want to talk about something that happened very, very recently on the Twitter sphere. So you guys tell me if you caught wind of this. So last week, lesbian, or I'm going to say sapphic YouTube couple Tina Boado and Roan Carrion became, I think, one of the first lesbian couples to have their story told on Maalaala Mo Kaya, which is
nice.
absolutely milestone to have sapphic love stories on cable, I guess. Or not cable. It's free, right? I don't know what.
To have it.
Yeah, just to have it there.
I mean, like, that's such a huge deal. To have
Definitely
a lesbian relationship depicted in a favorable and not exploitative light on national TV.
Definitely. And more than that, they even covered issues of mental health on the episode, which was...
Oh, really? You saw it?
Yeah, I did. I watched it. And they covered... A good part of it was a lot of issues on mental health being debunked and demystified, and really talking about how it's important to seek help. It was really informative and helpful.
Unfortunately, though, while Tina and her partner were super, super excited to have their story shared through MMK, they found themselves disappointed when actress Natalie Hart, who plays Tina in MMK, made remarks about how difficult it is to pretend to be in love with a woman. So I'm just going to read what Natalie Hart said during a press conference about the role. She said, "It's my first time to play a lesbian role. I'm very excited na nagawa ko siya at nalunok ko yung role na to. I think I gave justice to the role. Ang hirap ng role kasi you have to think you're in love with a woman. Ang hirap talaga. Mas madali sa akin makipagtitigan sa lalaki kahit kaninong actor but not with the same sex." So this drew a lot of flack from, I hate this word, netizens. It really drew a lot of flack, especially from the Twitter community. And it even drew flack from Tina and Roan themselves.
Yes.
So they came out with a statement. Tina said in a tweet, "Nothing more frustrating than having your love story depicted on mainstream media, only to find out later that a homophobe played your role." So the whole conversation about this is, I guess, really Natalie Hart's word choice. Before the show started, we were talking about what she meant by nalunok niya yung role. And Me, I kind of read it differently because of language barrier. I read it as, yeah, I was like, what does she mean by nalunok niya yung roll? I
Did
thought
she blow a roll?
No, I thought it was like literally like, you know how she ate it and left no crumbs.
Okay.
I thought it was like that. She's like, I killed it. I did my best.
Where did you learn
Right.
your definition of lunok?
Wala, dude, context clues na lang talaga. Because like, when I lunok, it's a celebration. Charot. But you know, apparently I was told by everybody else that that's really not what nalunok means. So, Kai, what is
Like,
your take on what happened?
The way I read it and the way I saw it is like she had to stoop down to like below her standards in order to do this role. Because again, when you say lunok, it's like it's a hard pill to swallow. So it's not exactly like the best, if I may say, tasting pill. It's not like the best thing that she could be. It's not like the first thing on her list to do, you know? And I don't know, it although the episode was amazing, I feel as though like it's very important. Now, remember what we talked about in the queer in the queer cinema episode with Jace, where he was talking about how it's important to portray these lives with the idea that you have a lot of responsibility to tell a good story, and that entails having to really understand and have empathy and really want. Actually, I think that's what's important, to want to play the role, because it seems to me that like she didn't really want to play the role. She just wanted to show her acting range is what it comes out to me. Kasi nalunok mo nga yung role, diba? Kasi parang nalunok mo yung role. So it was so hard for me because I couldn't really be a lesbian on screen, but I did it and I did it well. So I'm a great actress. This is what it comes out as to me. And that doesn't make me very happy, but yeah, it is what it is sometimes.
I don't know, like whenever a straight actor wants to show their range, they always play somebody from the queer community. That's always like, look how difficult this acting job is to play another human being. I've played murderers and crime bosses, but I could relate to them. I couldn't relate to this role, and that was why it was so difficult. Like, it's kind of ridiculous because they're actors.
As the resident straight
and an actor as well.
of the podcast, and one-time actor.
With an award.
One-time awarded actor. I honestly don't think she did anything wrong. From my point of view, it seems like it's I wouldn't say being taken out of context, because you can see it right there. But I mean, like it's just being blown out of proportion. Yet another thing that's being blown out of proportion, because I think what she meant was, like you mentioned earlier, it's easy for actors to step into other people's roles because they find something to relate to in that character, right? But we don't often play with our sexuality like that, especially straight people. Straight people aren't used to jumping in and out of playing with your sexuality and expressing what it is to love the same sex, right? So I guess she was just saying that for her, it was quite literally a hard pill to swallow, not because it tasted bad, but because it was difficult, but because it really was genuinely difficult for her to, as somebody who has not explored a heterosexual relationship. For me, it would be very difficult to get into the headspace of someone who is who's gay or queer or non-binary, So I don't think her words are hateful or malicious. She just said that it's hard to get into the headspace of a lesbian for her.
Well, what this did really spark is a conversation again about how we should be really casting queer actors in queer roles.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, like if it's so difficult to get actors, I mean, if your actor has to jump through so many hoops to get into that headspace, maybe just get actors who are actually available to you who are already queer.
Right? And like not only does this like add some authenticity to the role, which makes the performance typically better, but you also you give opportunities to people who don't often get opportunities or who get pigeonholed into certain opportunities. Mm-hmm. So I guess it's just a shame that she took a role away from somebody who could have been just as competent, if not more. Because I knew they had to do a lot of reshooting, or they had to like stop in the middle of the scene because she just couldn't conjure the lovey eyes and create that chemistry with her co-star, because she couldn't get it up for her co-star.
I mean, also, I just think that
theoretically.
maybe she's not that great an actress then.
That's also very possible.
I mean, if you can't make a
No.
love scene with somebody, maybe you're just not super good an actress.
Like,
Maybe it's not so much a political thing, so much as it is an I can't really do my job that well thing.
Yeah. Well, she did apologize on Instagram. Through an Instagram post, she said, "My close friends and family know how much I love gay people." Already the start of a great apology. I'm sorry if I offended the LGBTQ community for the remarks I made, which were taken out of context. So I get what you mean, where, you know, maybe she didn't mean it that way, but this is objectively a terrible apology.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like, I'm sorry I offended you. I meant none of it. I love
I really
gays.
think that in a different climate.
She said this thing where she goes like, you know, she revealed that she could not relate to the lesbian role in MMK.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds iffy to me, because it's like, if you can't in any way relate to the role that you're playing, as what you're saying in the statement, why did you accept the role? Parang,
yeah, the person who's playing is a person in love. You know, a person who's in love. You can pull from your hetero experiences.
That's true.
And just pretend it's a dude, you know, but like she couldn't. So
okay, so worst case scenario, because I genuinely don't believe that. I mean, she took the role. You know what I mean? Like, you know what that's going to do for you. That you know what that's going to do to you in the Philippines. That's going to be attached to you from now on.
Fair.
So it's not exactly the safest thing to take on.
Right.
Worst case scenario, she's really just kind of a bad actress. Worst case scenario, you're like, I had a really hard time because I can't seem to put my hetero experiences into a gay framework. Sorry. You know, like, that's worst case scenario.
Well, I hope that she learns from this experience. And I hope that in the future, any production that talks about a queer story has SOGI training.
Yeah.
So that cast, crew, everybody on the team is really giving justice to the narratives of our community, and instead of just fetishizing us or promoting our stories because now it sells. You know, that's I think something really relevant.
Look, if we can get like cultural consultants to work on Black Panthers so that they get it tonally correct and that they're culturally respectful, why can't they do this for the LGBTQ community?
Exactly. And actually, this leads me to, I want to plug next week's episode. We normally don't do it this early, but I think it's really relevant. Next week, we will be talking about how you can bring queer stories to life in a way that's respectful, celebratory, and you know, just really helps further the representation of the LGBTQ community, but also the opportunities that we give to queer actors and crew in especially in local media. So if you want to join us for next week's conversation, we have Juan Miguel Severo, the creator of Gaya sa Pelikula, on the show, and we're also going to have Rachel Coates, who acted in Pearl Next Door, a girls' love series that came out during the pandemic. So they're going to be teaching us about how they brought these queer narratives to life and what they did to ensure that, you know, they're representing the community properly on screen. So that's next week. Make sure you catch that. That's also the week we're going to be announcing the winner of the giveaway earlier.
Yay.
So there's just a billion reasons to check in next week. If you really like the content that we do, you can support us in other ways. You can go to coffee.com/nowopenph, drop us a line, drop a message, and, you know, just really help keep this show running. We really appreciate every little bit. And, you know, we talk to fans there too. Jobim, do you know what they get if they sign up for a coffee subscription?
The tears. You get like lots of tears, like baby angel tears.
Yes, we guarantee a bottle of angel tears with every monthly subscription on coffee.
Yep.
You also get extra content from each of the hosts. You get a special custom video and access to an exclusive Discord channel.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be more shit on there very, very soon.
Lots of shit. So much shit.
Yeah, so make sure you drop by the coffee to check out what else we've got there.
Okay. Saying good evening to Jade. I want to say Jade or Jude Ascension. Trisha, Nika, Nick, Ruth, Kim, and Zar and Daryl, who are here watching tonight live on the Where are we broadcasting on?
Facebook.
On the Facebooks.
God, Joe Bib,
So,
you are the best host.
Yeah, and is she Monic? There you go. So great.
All right, let's get started
Yeah.
with what we're talking about tonight, Kai. What are we talking about?
So tonight we are all about periods. And for our conversation and discussion tonight, we have Ninai Chavez, the founder of the We Bleed Red movement, a women-led online campaign that aims to demystify and destigmatize the word, as well as the sight of periods, through healthy and free from discrimination conversations. She is likewise a graduate student in the MA Women in Development program and an executive assistant to an undersecretary in DPWH.
All right, everybody, give a classic now open welcome to Ninai.
Woohoo!
Ninai,
Hello.
so many people are excited for you today. We have Kim who deposited 4 hearts in the comments for you.
Actually
And we
work
have
with her,
Daryl.
so she's supporting.
Oh,
yeah, my
that's
friends
perfect.
are here. Oo nga.
Yeah, and Daryl says excited for the guest speaker. So thank you so much for
Yes.
being here to share your expertise tonight.
I wouldn't say
All right.
expertise, more like experience. Just
Enthusiasm.
yeah, there also.
Advocacies. And in terms of advocacies and experiences, can you tell us about how what led you to found the We Bleed Red movement? How did it come about?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, parang how we bleed red, parang specific naman na parang, okay, yeah, you bleed red. So, it started with me questioning advertisements we see on TV and mga commercials, kumbaga, na bakit pinapakita blue liquid to represent period blood when it should be red liquid. So, it connotes the idea that periods should be something that should be something that we should be ashamed of. So that
Mm-mm.
began my questioning. Also, I also started questioning my behavior when it comes to, like, for example, when I go to work and I'm on my period, bakit ko tinatago yung napkin ko every time I go to the bathroom? Bakit nahihiya akong ipakita siya sa male colleagues ko? So these things, while also studying MA film in UP Diliman, parang na-realize ko parang mali yung representation na pinapakita sa mga kababaihan when it comes to their menstruation. So that led me to start We Bleed Red. It originally was an online campaign, yun nga, that aims to demystify and destigmatize period through healthy and open conversation. So we just wanna, gusto lang namin mag-ingay, kumbaga. I'm not an OB-GYN, I'm just a menstruator, and gusto ko lang mag-ingay about menstruation kasi it's tama na para to be silent about it. Parang it's time we talk about menstruation without feeling ashamed or without whispering, parang ganon. So that's how We Bleed Red started.
whispering. Sorry.
Ang ironic, no? Kasi there's
Yeah.
there's a brand, Whisper. Tapos parang, okay,
Yeah.
Whisper. I'm on my
I mean,
period.
like, yeah,
I'm on my period.
It's funny that the brand is even called Whisper, like it's a secret.
There's another one called Secret.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, secret.
And then
And
there's another brand. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, pero meron siya dito sa Philippines, Those Days. So we can't even name it. Which is it's
You
a
should call it
normal
Own
it's a normal natural biological function that happens to females with mature reproductive system, and yet
Right.
we can't even name it. That's why
Mm-mm.
sinasabi ko, gusto ko in-normalize yung menstruation, not just the sight of it, but as well as the word of it. Parang enough calling it time of the month. Call it what it is. It's menstruation. I'm menstruating. Oh,
Mm-mm.
hindi niyo sabihin na
Mm-mm.
it's the time of the month. Kasi stop hiding what it is. Instead, start talking about it. It starts there. And that's how this conversation is going. Yeah, so that's what
Right.
BB Dread is all about.
I did not know that women like go out of their way to hide their pads in their
Yeah.
bag.
Of
They hide
course
it
you
from
wouldn't,
people.
kasi nga tinatago namin. Pero
So
there
when-
are other women, menstruators, sorry,
Mhm.
I would rather call them menstruators than women. There are other menstruators na are bold enough to do it. Ako personally, at the age of 23, I was still I felt ashamed about it pa. So that's why We Bleed Red was really born in 24 ako, and that was 2019. So I was late in the game. But then again, at least I taught myself. So that's what I'm trying to reach out to other people then who's watching this. Na if I'm late in the game, you can still teach yourself na, okay, menstruation is something I shouldn't hide. Ganon. So,
I have a
yeah,
question.
some menstruators go out of their way to hide it. Hindi mo nga malalaman they're asking for napkins na behind your back, eh. Especially when we're
Mm,
surrounded with our male coworkers. I work in a
right.
male-dominated government agencies. I'm surrounded by
Mm,
lawyers and engineers. So
mm,
menstruating could be very difficult. Well, not say difficult, but uncomfortable for me. Kasi like, if I have to go to
right.
the bathroom, kailangan ko pang dumaan. Marami mga lalaki na kailangan ko pang itago sa sleeve ko, lalo na if I'm wearing long sleeves, kailangan ko itago sa sleeves ko or sa pocket ko kasi nahihiya ako na malaman nila I'm menstruating. So that's what I'm trying to change then within me. Na bakit ko ba kinahiya? Eh, normal naman to. Half of the population are menstruators, have
Mm,
a mature reproductive system. So, bakit ko tinagay something so normal? Bakit ako bothered ng sobra? So, yun nga, that led me to starting We Bleed Red. As it is what it is. I bleed red. It's not blue
mm.
liquid. It's not something I should
What
hide.
are
I bleed red.
what's one of the earliest experience that you guys as menstruators had that instilled in you that menstruating was something that was shameful? How were some of the ways that it was? What are the earliest ways that it was instilled in you guys as menstruators?
Oh my
I
God.
have some actually. I went to an all-girls school,
Uh-huh.
and we
Mm,
were actually quite open talking about our periods. Like if we were on our period, we literally just shouted in the classroom, "Sino may pad?" and then someone will give it to you. It was very, very open, but also simultaneously not. If you buy a pad from the campus bookstore, which sells all the random shit, they hand it to you in a discreet paper bag. They wrap
mm-mm.
it in tissue and then they put it in this discreet paper bag and then they slide it across the counter to you. But if you buy anything else, like you just pick it up and you leave.
Right.
So
Right.
The bookstore. People are gonna start questioning where those pads came from.
it was
For
the best.
me, it was like I was at a family trip, and then I took a nap at in one of the rooms in where we were staying, and then tumagos ako. Like I ended up like bleeding on the white sheets. So I didn't know up until my uncle, a family member, called me out, and he was like, "Hey, why didn't you know that, or why didn't you track your period? Why did you bleed on the bed?" And like at the time, it was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know how to talk about this with a man." But like, you know, yeah, like it was a weird moment because at first I bleed regularly. I'm not regular with my period, so it's like first off I can't track my period. Like I don't have an exact date for when my period comes. Second, it was so weird to me. I mean, and I thought it was normal to feel weird. It was so weird to me that like I would be parang that like a non-menstruating person would kind of call me out on my menstruation. Parang that was such an odd experience for me. Na, like bleeding onto white sheets became such a parang but ka dumugo dyan, like it's a normal. I learned later on, but it's a normal process, diba? So yeah, that was one of the earliest experience I've had, or like the most memorable, remarkable period or memory I've had in terms of like being shameful with my period. More than that, it's like also the norms that surround period products. Like I remember I started using tampons as a form of rebellion because my yeah, dude, like my grandmother would always tell me like, don't use that kasi para sa tao yung di na virgin. And I'm like, fine, I'm gonna fucking use it. I'm gonna fucking use fucking tampons because I'm fucking badass.
I
And
remember
I end up loving it. Like I love tampons. Like they're my favorite product.
I
So
remember in high school among the girls, it was like a sign of maturity. You'd moved on from pads to Oh, you're one of the tampon users. You're a gold star menstruator.
It's really weird because I think when I was in high school, it was kind of the opposite.
Really?
There was a little bit of slut shamey thing going on there.
right.
But I do want to talk about that a little bit later. I do want to ask Ninai. So we keep bleeding extremely, extremely private. Like, yung kung tagusin ka, it's like the most embarrassing thing that could happen to you.
Yeah,
We see ads.
We see, like, don't.
That's
yeah.
like the central theme of the majority of ads is like, don't let them see you bleed.
Right, like
Like
now
we're
you
living
can wear white
in
pants.
the African Sahara, and like bleeding will attract predators or some shit.
And I remember one of my first periods happened. I think it was actually my first period happened during 6th grade graduation practice. And our graduation clothes are white, so we were wearing it as part of the practice. And I bled for the very first time. And that was terrible kasi tumagos nga, malamang. And the seats were red, so I didn't notice it there because it just was hidden. But then it was all over my white dress, and I was mortified. I was so mortified to have done it so publicly. But again, you said it's a completely normal bodily function. It happens to all menstruators at some point in their lives. So why do you think it's so essential for us to normalize periods?
It's essential kasi everyone is affected by menstruation. And pati non-menstruators are affected by this directly. Kasi menstruation, there's, what's this? Parang it can affect you economically, socially, culturally, and most importantly, personally. Like, for example, there's taboos going around pagdating sa mga menstruation that are very harmful. Like, for example, in Nepal, they build red tent. They call it red tent. Kasi when the menstruator is menstruating, when she is bleeding, she's not allowed to go inside the house because she's considered impure. Which is weird. Bakit impure for bleeding? What's so wrong with bleeding? It's just literally the shedding of the uterus wall. Kasi every month, your body prepares for pregnancy. And when that doesn't happen, the uterus wall in your the uterine wall in your uterus is shed. So it's just literally blood, tissue. It's blood. So to put women out there, to shame them for, bleeding, to call it impurity, that's very harmful to menstruators. That's very unfair and unjust. So, tapos, these things happen, pero no one questions it. It's ngayong 2020 lang, last year lang, or 2019, nag-start lang mag-ban yung government ng Nepal for red tents. 2019, isn't that way too late? Diba?
Right.
It's late in the game. It harms people. So, and then, politically, yung mga, for example, I'm a PWD. So when you buy groceries, di ba may mga 20% discount for essential goods? Dude, napkins, luxury items. I don't get discounts for napkins. Nope. So imagine that. Pero ito din let me just ask this question. You can debate this with me. But if men are menstruating, sa tingin nyo, considered essential good na ba ang menstrual pads? I think
We would have had it
yes.
way before capitalism even
May
was invented.
may period leave na din. Kapag mga lalaki nagme-menstruate, magkakaroon na ng period leave. Magkakaroon na ng free and accessible menstrual pads in public toilets.
Hell, if
But
men had
no.
periods, we'd have a male pill by now.
Oh yeah, you would have like
I would
all
love
of the
that.
free
I
We
would
have a
love
male.
that.
There was
I
a
would
male
love that.
contraceptive pill. Did you guys know this?
Yeah.
There was a male contraceptive pill that was being developed about 2 years ago, but the studies were cut off. They were stopped because they exhibited the same side effects that the pill exhibits for women, and men were like, no, we don't want that.
And a lot of those same symptoms are also the same symptoms, or not symptoms, but they're also the same effects of menstruating, like weight,
literally that. They were
whatever.
like, we can give you the power to not get anyone pregnant, but you'll have to experience menstrual symptoms. And men all over the world were like, nope, not worth it. Rather have a baby.
That I'm just gonna run away from anyway.
Yeah, that's fucked up, man.
You know, all this like all this
So, diba?
parang shrouding of like the experience of periods, because like it affects a lot of women in such a way na, for example, like when I first got my period, I was in an amusement park and I pulled down my pants to use the bathroom. Like, it's bleeding. And I was bawling in the toilet. And I'm like, I'm so scared. What the hell is happening? Because no one talked to me about my period growing up. I mean, I knew it was happening. It's bound to happen. But no one really talked to me about it. Like, no one talked to me about like how I'm supposed to take care of myself when I get my period, or what I'm supposed to expect around this age. So I was in an amusement park bathroom stall. And I'm like, I'm bleeding. What's happening? And like it was such a weird experience to me because I realized like it if we talked about it more in such a way that was not, so secretive, so like
Hindi like
enshrouded, if I may say,
whisper.
and like
Yeah.
yeah, and if you don't want whispers about it, like I feel it's going to be a lot easier for these younger girls.
I feel like when we talk
What
about like
you
the
experience? Sorry, go,
Oh, go
Jobim.
ahead.
yeah, go
Okay.
ahead. Sorry.
What guys experience, not having that kind of guidance or no one to tell to about menstruating? That's what you call period poverty. Period poverty is the lack of information, relevant information about your menstruation. I'm not sure kung anong klaseng pagtuturo sa inyo nung tinuturo nila yung menstruation sa class when we were in high school. But I remember specifically back when I was in high school, na nung tinuro nila yung menstruation, wala pang 15 minutes. Sinabi lang, it happens every month. Na, okay, you bleed every month. That's it. Wala pang 15 minutes. And then back to the sex discussion. Tapos highlight pa on
Uh-oh.
the penis and the vagina. But about the menstruation, hindi. They don't talk about the anxiety you feel when you're menstruating. You don't know it, but sometimes menstruators get anxiety for menstruating kasi they have to worry about tagos. They have to worry about where to get their napkins pag wala sila. So, can you imagine then this kind of kung lack of information for menstruators in need, yung mga menstruators na walang knowledge about this, especially let's think about menstruators in far-flung areas. Imagine how difficult it is for them to look for menstrual pads. And can we relate it to the COVID pandemic happening right now na yung mga menstruators in rural areas na nawalan ng trabaho. And with what little they have, what little money they have left, saan nila gagamitin yung pera nila? Pambili ng pagkain ng mga anak nila, pambili ng menstrual pads. I believe they will choose food for their family, right? So they will
Mm-mm.
resort to harmful alternatives. And what are these harmful alternatives? Dahon. Gagamitin nila yung dahon as a pasador or dirty cloth, basahan. And worst case scenario, free bleeding. Free bleeding is yung wala ka na talaga. You just bleed there, out there in the open, tagos, everything. So these harmful alternatives, sobrang unfair for menstruators and for menstruators na walang access and knowledge. Basic, there's dapat may menstrual health rights the same way we have the same way we're advocating for sexual and reproductive health rights. Are you guys following me? Diba,
Yeah.
imagine, kasi, I mean, I can say that we are tayong group na we're menstruating. We come from a privileged family, I would say. May access tayo to menstrual pads. May access tayo. Hindi natin masyado po problemahin yung, oh, I'm menstruating now. Hindi ako hindi ako tatawid ng ilog para maghanap ng napkin. No, 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 no. I have a stock here. Pero imagine talaga
Mm-mm.
menstruators na kailangan pa, alam mo yun, dahil lang nagdudugo sila. We didn't ask for this. And yet we are so shamed about it, tapos pinapatago pa sa atin. Imagine how unfair it is for them. So, kaya yung We Bleed Red, when we do napkin donation drives, we make sure na yung audience namin, yung beneficiaries namin, are menstruators in need na walang access. So, we talk to other NGOs na may in coordination with other indigenous women na nahihirapan maghanap ng napkin. And can we also talk about, sorry, feel free to interrupt me if I'm talking too much, but can we
No,
also
go
talk
ahead.
about pag may mga donation drive, like for example, yung Typhoon Rolly, Typhoon Ulysses, pag humihingi sa donation and toiletries, anong meron? Shampoo, towel, water. Asan yung menstrual pads?
Right.
Rarely mentioned. Rarely
Right.
mentioned. Rarely asked for. Hindi nila kinoconsider, ay, oo nga, baka yung mga babae nagme-menstruate, baka kailangan nila ng napkin. Rarely mentioned, rarely asked for. Bilang lang sa kamay yung mga alam kong organizations na specifically asked for menstrual pads. That's why yung We Bleed Red, kapag may donation drive, talaga specific kami, hindi napkin donation drive, napkin lang ang kailangan namin. Kasi ito yung hindi
So,
nyo
Ninay,
nabibigay.
you talked a lot about like how structurally, for example, NGOs can donate period products to far-flung areas and to menstruators in need. What about for non-menstruators and for people in the individual level? How can we take part
Civilians.
in normalizing periods and in spreading the message of being more inclusive and more understanding of menstruators? Like, how can we do this in our own ways?
I really, really love that question, Kai. Kasi, aminin man natin, or hindi man agree lahat nito, but non-menstruators are just as affected by menstruators. You,
Mm-mm.
sa mga non-menstruators out there, you are surrounded by menstruators. Okay?
Mm-mm.
So, kung yung well-being
Oh, Nina, you're cutting out a little bit.
tingin mo yung well-being mo okay lang, a husband is with her female wife. Imagine kung kunyari nagka-cramp siya, hindi siya makatayo sa kama, and then you have to worry about the children, then you have to go to work. Alam mo yon, their well-being is just as important as yours because you're surrounded by them. So, alam mo yon, like, kung nahihirapan sila, hindi nila sinasabi kasi sa kultura natin, hindi natin sinasabi na nahihirapan tayo kapag nag-menstruate tayo. We're so used to being silent about it. So, ang encouragement ko, I always start with this kasi we Bleed we work through volunteerism. We don't have monetary budget to just start workshops na to invite non-menstruators. So how do we do it? How do we invite them? We just start by conversing with them. Na usapin mo lang, be vocal about it. Start talking to them na walang hiya. It starts in you eh. When you start
Mm-mm.
talking about menstruation na hindi ka nahiya sa harapan ng lalaki, ang very powerful nun. And that, for me, that causes a ripple effect. Because, for
Mm-mm.
example, in my sa work ko ngayon, I started talking about menstruation publicly, vocally. To the point na yung mga kasamahan ko sa office, kapag nanghihiram na ng napkin, tinatawag na nila, sinashout na nila kahit nandun yung male workers namin. And then we started this conversation. We actually had this conversation na, bakit namin dapat itago na nagme-menstruate kami, naapektuhan na din naman kayo. Plus,
Oo.
menstruation is a sign of life. It's power. It's signs that you are fertile, that you can
Mm-mm.
procreate and pwede ka magkaroon ng anak. If that's not power enough, then what is? Men can't bring child into this world. Alam
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
You know,
mo
I have some
yun?
questions about
So,
some of the
that's
options
why we
available.
need,
Somebody says,
yes,
I don't
please.
know. Pam says, I don't know. There is sorry. My mom and Lola are taga-bukid naman, and proudly so. They used cloths. Matagal na uso reusable napkins sa Pinas. We just have to make sure that hygiene is prioritized. Now, how viable an option are reusable napkins, especially for indigenous peoples or
People in
people who
rural
don't have
areas.
a lot of access um, to napkins? Or how viable is it to give these women cups instead of menstrual pads so that they don't have to keep on getting pads every month
Okay.
or regularly?
At the end of the day, the choice is theirs. It's just that we have to make sure that may option sila na hindi lang sila stuck sa iisa na option. Like for example, di ba nga we had a conversation behind the scenes that's someone was having rashes when she uses napkins. She has other options eh. So she can use a menstrual cup or she could use a reusable pad. So it's not kung pasador ang ginagamit mo, that's great as long as meron kang informed options. So, for example then, hindi mo kasi pwedeng sabihin na, oh, everyone use menstrual cups kasi it saves the environment. You can't force everyone. Why? You have to consider women with sexual abuse trauma. We have to consider them. Kasi you can't force them to insert something kasi it could relieve their trauma. Are you following
Right.
me? So, ang
Yes.
important here is not, it's not, hindi mo pinupush na, oh, ito ang kailangan mong gamitin. More like, ito yung mga choices mo. So,
Mm-mm.
pumili ka kung saan ka comfortable. If you want
Yeah.
tampons because it makes you feel empowered, then use tampons, girl. If you want to use menstrual cups because it saves the environment, then go. Pero kung reusable pads kasi it's not all the time you want to wear something inside your vagina, then go for it. So what is
Yeah.
important here is that they have options, which not a lot of menstruators have. That's why
Right.
kasi
Yeah.
lahat
To
ng
riff off of
magdodonate, we
that,
stick to disposable napkins. It's not very environmentally friendly, pero kasi budget-wise, aning mapoprovide namin ng mas madami. Mas mahal kasi ang reusable pad, mas mahal ang menstrual cup, mas mahal ang tampon. So we have to, ang dami mo kailangan pag-isipan kapag mag-donate ka, to be honest. So we have to resort to disposable pads kasi ito yung makaprovide mo, isang napkin could help them within 2 to 3 days. As to compare to a menstrual cup na isa lang mabibili mo, ilan sila?
Mm.
to
Kasi
riff
ang
off
mahal
of
ng
that,
menstrual cup, 'di ba?
I
Are you guys
remember
following me?
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
So
yes.
I remember that there was a donation drive at some point in time in the last 5, 10 years or so where they tried to donate menstrual cups to women in rural Africa,
Mhm.
like hella rural Africa.
Mm.
And they couldn't use them because they
Mm.
didn't have access to water. So they couldn't clean their
Mm.
cups. So you also have to think about I guess, the economic aspect of it where, yeah, I'll give you a reusable pad, but do you have pang laundry? Do you
Right.
have
Mm.
tubig or
I don't
poso
think they
lang ba
have
kayo?
Downy.
Right? And
Mm.
like if you have only poso water,
Right.
which may or may not be clean, and you don't
Right.
have
Clean.
fuel to heat it up,
Mm-mm.
and the cooking implements to heat up some water to boil your cup every
Mm-mm.
month, then a menstrual cup would be the worst thing we could possibly give you. But disposable pads, even though they're not environmentally friendly, you don't need anything else
So
to use them.
Yeah.
what I'm getting from our discussion is that a lot of the stigma around menstruation comes from literal mysticism and lack of information, right? It's so tied into our culture because it's been there for forever because of what we know from when we didn't know anything, that it's, why is this human being bleeding for 7 days and not dying? There must be something wrong, they must be impure, yada yada yada. But there's also another side to not normalizing periods, which I think is really brought up well by Trisha, our listener Trisha, who says, "One thing I super hate when immature men treat period symptoms as a joke. Ang
Mm.
moody, bilis magalit, time of the month siguro, lol." Or when they use it to say a woman's illogical just because sakto may period siya. Which is a really good point because not normalizing periods also serves to dismiss women, right? There is an inherent vein of misogyny in not understanding or non-willingness to understand periods because
Absolutely.
we can chalk it up to, oh, you have your period, you're just being emotional.
Yeah, you see this
Right.
a lot as there's recent discourse about when Duterte said that women couldn't be president because, like, oh, you have a woman, then they're going to be launching nuclear codes every month because they're on their
Right.
period. And it's just like all of the male leaders
Bitch,
have been men.
literally
All of these-
every single person that has ever started a war has been a man, dude. Like a major fucking war has been a fucking man.
And they don't even have periods. So, like,
Yeah.
what's your excuse, bitch? Like, I know why I'm crying. Why are you an asshole? Like, there's really so.
What's your excuse?
Exactly. It's what's your excuse. So, I guess it really does further a lot of misogyny. I do want to take a quick break here so that we can, give a little break to our listeners and also talk about go into our next segment, which we try to do every week. We call it Opening Up. Yes, that's the new name.
We change it every week.
We change it every week because
Next week it's gonna be something else.
people usually have a great suggestion. So yeah, so now it's Opening Up. But if
Okay.
you have a better suggestion, you know what, you might listen to.
Right.
So for this week's Opening Up, we have an anonymous letter again. This
Ninai,
writer,
feel free to chime in.
yeah, no, you are totally welcome to chime
Yeah,
in on this
sure,
anonymous
sure.
letter issue. So, anonymous letter writes, "Hi, I've been listening to some of your podcasts, and it really helped me with widening my perspective about most things. On the topic of sex, I've actually been wondering on how I can have safe sex with my partner, especially in a women loving women situation. So, two women in a relationship, and I guess in this case would be two vaginas. I don't think women in general have access to safe sex information when it's between them. What are the things we should use and be aware of? Those are just some of the things I want to know. Thank you.
Anonymous, I'm so glad you asked because I am the expert on sapphic sex. Because I've had so much of it in my life.
So I want to bring this to, well, I guess we have two resident sapphics here, but I want to know, Kai, what kind of safe sex practices have you been implementing in your sapphic relationships?
Dental dams?
No. Dental, I mean, you could always cut up a condom and use it as a dental dam, but then, like, I prefer having to have like a legitimate dental dam that I can use, but generally, wow, this is such an interesting question because honestly I question it to myself where it's like what are the safe sex practices that I have to do like in a sapphic relationship. Na parang one of the things I do know is that bacterial vaginosis, an STI, although doesn't necessarily, you can't, parang when you pass in a heterosexual sex thing, guys don't or someone with a penis doesn't necessarily experience symptoms of BV, but
Well,
you can
it can also be asymptomatic.
It can a lot of times be symptomatic, but like while you're fucking, I promise you, it's itchy.
But with women loving women and in sapphic sex, it's something that you pass on a lot faster and a lot more. So that's something I learned, but then I do agree that there's a lot of not knowing in terms of sex ed when it comes to same-sex relationships and same-sex practices.
Yeah, and I guess to add to that, I would recommend getting checked with your OB-GYN pretty regularly because yes, using condoms and dental dams, etc., can protect you against the transmission of things, but so many issues with your vagina kind of have overlapping symptoms. Mm-hmm. So you might think it's a bacterial infection. It could be something else. It could be maybe PCOS. Mm-hmm. Like there's just like so many potential causes of things that if you get regularly checked by an OB-GYN, you can nip that in the bud and you can prevent spreading it to everyone else. The good news is that chances of STI passing from one person with a vagina to another is relatively rare, but bacterial vaginosis does pass through that way, especially through toys or fingers. So I would highly recommend using condoms for toys, especially if you have multiple partners or if you use it on more than one person, aka yourself and your partner. And to also use gloves. Like you can buy them in Mercury Drug. I know a lot of us don't even think of fingering as a potentially risky method of transmission, but honestly, hands are dirty. We've learned that.
Gloves are sexy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think Blink 182 proved that on the cover of Enema of the State.
Yeah, like you can literally buy black latex gloves that tattoo artists use if you don't want the white ones.
Yeah.
So, but they all work to prevent transmission. And obviously, wash your hands before you finger and brush
your nails.
Yeah, cut your nails.
Cut your nails.
Cut your nails. If you use gloves, at least you can prevent that. Just make sure you don't touch things with the glove and then touch your partner.
Brush your teeth, wash your badge, be clean.
Yeah. So I guess
speaking of just quick lang, gloves. I went to this one little sex shop and they had little condoms and I was like, what is this? And I was there like, it's condoms for your finger. Like literally, it's just for your finger. Just put them here. And I'm like, wow, they make this now. So yeah, that was in Love Corner. And if you guys want like finger condoms.
Or for tiny penises.
That could work too.
Right. Yeah.
So just reminding everybody, we have a giveaway for tonight's show.
Hey!
If all this talk about periods has got you interested, especially in the concept of menstrual cups, Sanaya is giving away a menstrual cup to one of our lucky now open customers. All you have to do is share the podcast video link on Facebook or on Twitter. The podcast video link is where you're listening right now, the link on the Facebook. Then when you share it, make sure you tag both Now Open and Sanaya. and caption it with an insight you learned tonight about periods or menstrual cups. You have until March 8th to submit your entries, and I will be picking a winner and announcing it during next week's show. So I left the instructions in the comments if you want to check that out. But let's get on with our conversation because we have still so much to talk about periods.
So much.
So much. So
in a short amount of time.
So Ninai, I want to ask you as a menstruator educator, what are that you should put that on your business card.
I like the sound of that.
So
menstruator educator.
Menstruator. No,
menstruator.
Hey! So, what are some of the most common and infuriating period myths you've heard?
Oh, okay. Well,
Sama mo na yung negative experiences mo.
I'm sorry, Kai, again.
Sama mo na rin yung mga negative
Okay,
experiences
I'll
mo.
proceed. Ewan ko kung narinig. Okay. Well, for example, I had this friend where she was told to yung menarche is your first blood, literally your first blood when you're menstruating. It's your first blood. So your menarche, you have to wipe it sa face mo to prevent
Oh,
acne.
I remember that.
It will give you.
Oh my God, I've heard that.
Have you heard of that?
Oh my God, I've fucking heard that.
I have heard of
I have
that.
heard that. I did
Okay.
not do it because I thought it was gross.
Period blood is not dirty. Okay. But you wouldn't go around wiping it in your face, right? And there's no scientific proof for that. So hindi ko alam
Gwyneth
kung sino yung
Paltrow puts
nag-create
period
nun.
blood in her face.
Hindi ko alam kung sino yung
Because she's
nag-create
Gwyneth Paltrow.
nun or kung saan siya nag-originate.
Mm-mm.
But it's a period myth. And then yung period myth na bawal ka maligo when you're menstruating, that you're
Heard that
just
as
supposed
well.
to continue bleeding and that bawal kang maligo. That's so stupid. I mean, hello, hygiene,
Question.
guys. You have to take a bath. Yes.
I have a period question. So I've heard, I don't know if
No.
this is true, but I've heard that when you guys jump into a pool or a body of water while you are menstruating, it stops.
Makes a stop.
And then
Yeah,
once,
I heard of that.
Let
then
me-
once you get out of the water,
It starts again.
It starts up again, but like everything that is accumulated
It's like-
comes out. Is that true? And if
Okay,
so,
okay.
how does your body know to stop? That's pretty amazing
It's
to
true.
me.
Okay. Actually, there's a scientific explanation. I hope to explain it correctly. But, di ba pag may pressure, when you go down to water and may pressure, there's air that's stopping the blood from coming out.
Mm.
Therefore,
Yeah.
when you jump into the water, yung air na yon, it's stopping your blood from coming out.
You mean that there's a pocket of air?
Like, you know, when you have a glass and
Yeah.
you do this in
Mhm.
water, the water doesn't go all the way in.
No, so you mean it? Okay, so and this might sound stupid, but if hypothetically speaking, if I get a woman who is menstruating and I flip her upside down underwater, and a bubble of air pops out, does that mean that when I flip her over again, she'll start menstruating because there's no more air bubble?
No, hindi naman kasi naka-open. Have you ever seen a vagina? Hindi naman kasi naka-open yun eh.
Okay.
Hindi yun naka-open. Hindi yun naka-open. It's
Alright.
not, hindi siya nakaganyan.
Mhm.
Okay? You have to go in it. Kailangan
You have to
mo
push the
mag-push
water
ng
in.
mga muscle dyan. You have to
Right.
push yung muscle doon. So, hindi
Mm-mm.
siya naka-open na if you flip us upside down. That's not gonna happen.
Okay.
All right. So, what other period myths you got? I'm sure you've had many
Yeah,
in your
what are
life.
some other period myths?
Talk about the offensive one. Like, for example, menstruators cannot go inside churches. Or,
What?
Yeah.
Where's this? Where's
Holy
this?
places.
Buddhist temples
Why?
in Bali,
Yes,
you can't
they're
go
not
inside a
allowed because
temple
they're
if you're
considered
menstruating.
impure.
I just lied. I was just like, I'm not.
Because they're considered impure.
Are they gonna check? Are they gonna check?
Oh man.
So they're considered impure. That's why they're not allowed to go inside. And then there are minsan din, I think this was in Nepal as well, that if you're menstruating, you're not allowed to eat with other people. You should eat alone. Kasi you're considered unholy. Like
Okay,
you're
so these are
unholy and impure.
these are kind of specific experiences in different parts of the world. But earlier you mentioned a universal anxiety that accompanies having periods, and a universal experience that women share when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to dealing with their
Menstruators
periods
share,
because
yes.
of menstruators. Yeah, because of the stigma that is around menstruating. What are some of the common negative experiences that come with having a period?
Like,
That
dysmenorrhea, I
that
guess, is
menstruators have to deal
one.
with, that
Yeah,
the people should be
anything na
sensitive to.
biological yun, dysmenorrhea, like, yun nga napag-usapan natin. Is it just me? Pero nakakapagod kapag when you talk about dysmenorrhea, tas they can't relate. Parang it's considered invalid kasi
Yeah,
they cannot
especially
relate.
at
Like for
work.
example, when you like for example, when you go to work, tapos sabi mo or you can't go to work kasi sabi mo may dysmenorrhea ka, parang isipin nila ang babaw. Parang okay, parang you bleed every month tapos ang dysmenorrhea hindi mo kaya. Parang gets. So there's this certain way of silencing women na or menstruators, sorry rather, na dahil na-experience natin na tayo lang nakaka-experience, hindi porket na hindi nila na-experience, it's considered invalid. So that's very unfair. Yes, Kai, I think you were about to say something. Okay.
Oh, why is she muted?
So, ayun, so yung tapos
Yeah.
din nga the anxiety we just talked about. This anxiety it's a universal feeling. Kasi
Right.
alam mo yun, hindi mo man siya ma-acknowledge na some menstruators may not even know it's anxiety. Like for example,
Right.
alam mo yun, not everyone uses period trackers. So,
Right.
pag may feel ka na you feel bloated, you feel a little uneasy or uncomfortable ka, magkakaroon ka ng anxiety na magkakasakit lang ba ako or am I about to have my period? It questions
Right.
your well-being. Eh. So that's something we share universally. Yun. So
So in
parang
terms of these
imagine,
experiences, mm-mm. In
yes,
terms of these
guy.
experiences, like more than just like these universal experiences, we're talking about how the universality of these experiences. What about like I want to know a little bit more about the illnesses that are related to periods and
Mm,
fertility that shouldn't go unchecked.
okay. Okay. There's taboo in going to see your OB-GYN these days.
Mm-mm.
Parang na pupunta ka sa OB-GYN, dapat hindi alam ng parents mo kasi even yeah. So anyway, what I'm trying to say na you shouldn't go unchecked. We should always go to our OB-GYNs to check our menstrual health
Mm-mm.
kasi there are different diseases. For one, PCOS or polycystic cesarean ovarian syndrome. Sorry. Yung PCOS, ito, ang meaning kasi ng PCOS is yung mas mataas ang male hormones mo compared to your female hormones. So you produce
Mm-mm.
more hair, may weight gain or weight loss happening, tapos may acne, tapos irregular yung period mo. So you need to have this check kasi in a female body, hindi dapat male hormones mo. It should be female hormones in a female body, right? So
Mm.
dahil hindi siya nagmamatch, it affects your menstrual health and completely um, disturbs your well-being. It causes
Mm.
stress. It causes a change in mood. So kaya that's why for me also segue. I find it offensive when men try to tell you what you feel about your menstruation. Na mayroon ka kaya ka moody.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
My body. Tapos
Mm-mm.
we have endometriosis. Endometriosis is yung abnormal bleeding,
Mm-mm.
heavy cramps, painful. It's also when you have painful intercourse. So when you experience these things, you need to go and have your uterus checked. Tapos we also have
Right.
uterine fibroids. It's like a tumor in your uterus. It's not exactly cancerous, but tumor is not good. So you have to check it. Tapos meron ding cervical cancer na often go unchecked. I bet only a few or a handful know what cervical cancer is, but it's the cancer of the uterus. So these things, that's why you really have to go regularly get checked. especially if you
Mm-mm.
have, kung kaya mo, may access ka. But for those na walang access sa mga ganitong information, what we can do is to educate them, to spread the word na, oh, if you're feeling this, you probably have this. Kasi kung hindi nila, at least pwede nilang ang tawag doon, parang self-check,
Self-diagnose?
self-diagnose.
So,
Pwede nilang self-diagnose. In a way, pwede nilang ma-prevent. They can change their lifestyle. Ano mo, something as simple as stress. Sorry, stress is not simple, but something as, simple. Let's just use it.
oh,
Something as simple as stress could affect your menstrual health. And your menstrual
mm-mm.
True.
health affects your overall health. Kasi yung menstrual health mo, it runs your mood eh. It runs
It's
your
because it's a flood
mood.
of hormones. It's like your
Mm-mm.
body
Oh, it's
is
a flood of
preparing for
hormones.
pregnancy, so
Exactly.
it's like hormones.
Yes. So
Mm-mm.
it's not something that males experience kasi wala silang uterus, wala silang, alam mo yon. So,
Demonstrators,
I,
yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, kung hindi man natin sila mabigyan ng access to these para makapunta ng mga makakita ng doktor, makapunta sa OB-GYN, the least we can do is to provide an avenue for them to understand what's going through their body. This is why for
Mm-mm.
me, it's very important that we have sexual and reproductive health care sa Pilipinas. Kasi doon malalaman doon sila pwedeng pumunta para
Mm-mm.
ma-consult nila kung what's happening in their bodies. Yeah.
True.
Right.
We have a comment here from one of our customers, but not everyone has access or has the privilege or time to go to OB/GYN or clinics. And you know what, other Trisha, you are completely right. That's true. So many people, because like OB/GYN I don't know how much it costs to go. Like, sabihin natin 500 peso physician fee, and then you have to get your med spa and everything. Whenever I go to an OB/GYN for bacterial vaginosis, it costs me thousands of pesos. And you're right, like not
Mm-mm.
everybody has the access, and that definitely needs to change. Like, there
Right.
are some free sexual health clinics that offer testing, but a lot of them don't even staff OB/GYNs, so you have to go to a separate one. So
Mm-mm.
unfortunately, as civilians, we can't do much except vote properly and protest and, try to push for equal access. But really, the
Yeah.
goal is to have everyone be able to go see their care doctors and OB/GYNs when they're able to. Because if you leave a lot of these issues unchecked, infertility is absolutely in your future. More pain, more suffering as a menstruator is in your future. Unfortunately, not a lot of people have the money to nip that in the bud, and it snowballs and it gets worse. So hopefully that situation does change with more education and more awareness about how this affects everyone.
Nina,
Mm-mm.
you talked earlier about how different people have different access to
Yeah.
resources regarding their
Mm-mm.
menstrual hygiene. But are there baseline rules or practices that everyone should practice to stay clean during their period that everyone can
Okay.
observe?
Yeah, definitely staying clean is one way to prevent any menstrual illnesses or illnesses that affects your menstrual health. So if you don't have clean water, at least find a clean cloth to wipe the blood, the menstrual blood. Pero yung mga practices na to, okay, let's talk about dun sa mga medyo privileged side. Of course, obviously, you have to clean daily. There's nakalimutan ko pala, period myth din pala, they always have to use feminine soap, feminine wash. No.
Yeah.
Mild soap is
No.
enough. Mild soap is enough. Kasi our vaginas are self-cleaning. May acid na nilalabas ang vaginas natin that self-cleans. Kasi nakakulob yan eh. So you can trust your vagina to clean itself. So mild soap is okay. If you can't afford a feminine wash because it tends to be expensive, then go for a mild soap. And then just clean water, that's enough. Wala ka masyadong kailangan gawin sa
Mild
vagina mo,
soap.
to be honest. Kasi it's a
Mm-mm.
self-cleaning. You have to trust your body to take care of itself. But you also have to
And
do
what counts
something
as
different.
mild soap?
I'm sorry, what counts as a mild
What?
soap?
Yeah.
Yung hindi matapang, it doesn't kill 99.9% germs.
Okay.
Yung mga
That's
77.7%
wrong.
lang yung
So,
pinapatay.
Yeah, yeah.
siguro mga 60.9%. Mga ganun lang. Dove is a mild
69%.
soap. Cetaphil is a mild soap.
Basically,
walang
don't spray Lysol
Yun.
on your
So,
vag.
yeah,
that's
You should be
considered
don't
a
use
fine.
mild soap.
alcohol. Absolutely
What should
No,
you not
don't.
use? What are some of the things that some people use that they absolutely should not be doing?
I have one because this was recommended to me by a doctor when I didn't have bacterial vaginosis. I think it's Bactidol. They make a
Bakit? May little
Betadine?
betadine. Joke lang, Bactidol.
vagina mo.
Betadine. Yeah. So there's a betadine feminine wash that you can use. That's like it's an antiseptic wash. And
Right,
do
yeah.
not. This is available in Mercury Drug over the counter. But in my personal experience, only use betadine if it is prescribed by a doctor because it's an antiseptic. So it kills all of the
Everything.
kills everything. So if you have a healthy pH balance, it can actually really fuck up your pH balance because it kills all of the bacteria, including the good one.
Yeah.
So because you kill good
That's true.
bacteria, it can let bad bacteria proliferate. So do not use betadine feminine wash unless it is prescribed by a doctor and only do it as prescribed. Like even what's the one that everyone uses?
Yeah.
The famous one, the one
Beach
that's like
care?
pH care. Even pH
Oh,
care
yeah.
also
pH
kills a
care.
lot of things. When I stopped using that, I stopped getting bacterial vaginosis as often.
Earlier, Nina, you mentioned free bleeding as an option for some people who don't have access to menstrual products. What are the dangers of free bleeding and why is it so harmful? Ninai?
There's a bit of a delay.
Hello. Sorry. Can you say that
Yes.
again? What are the
Yeah,
options? Free
earlier
bleeding. What about free bleeding?
earlier you mentioned free bleeding. What are some of the dangers of free bleeding and some of its risks? Why is it not safe to do?
It's not safe because it's unsanitary. I mean, if you pag may sugat ka, would you just leave it like that? No, you wouldn't. You would clean it, diba? Kasi bacteria could infect it. The same way that you shouldn't leave your vaginas bleeding like that. So free bleeding should not be an option for menstruators. That's why we should be advocating for menstrual equity talaga. So yeah,
Okay,
free
so can we
bleeding. Mhm.
can we run through some of the options available then to people from the what we've been saying are the more
The
privileged options
products.
and
Yes.
yeah and the more
Okay.
accessible products as well.
Okay, the most accessible product is a disposable napkin. Halos lahat ng store meron yan, convenience store, 7-Eleven, mini stop, hypermarket, and schools have that, but it's not for free. Or and it's taxed also. So, but yun yung pinaka may access tayo. Second,
Mm-mm.
I guess, actually wala nang second, yun talaga eh. Kasi rare na ang tampons. Because not dito sa
Oo.
Yeah.
Philippines,
Oo.
it's
They're
not
so mahal.
it's not really culturally accepted eh, diba? Like Kai
Yeah,
said,
let's
there's
just nip
taboo
that in
with
the
it.
bud right now. If you use tampons, you're still a virgin. It's not like a sign of virginity. Okay, it's
Yeah,
fine to
that's
use
true.
tampons, dude. If you need to use tampons, fucking use tampons. Don't let your Lola tell you different. Your Lola's wrong. Mali si Lola. You heard it here first.
Sorry, Lola. Okay. We also have menstrual cups. Menstrual cups are expensive, but they can last up to 2 to 10 years. It depends kung paano mo siya gagamitin or paano mo siya alagaan.
Mm-mm.
But, mai-recommend mo siya dun sa mga more on those for people na nag-advocate for environmental sustainability. But, hindi siya option for other people na pwedeng magkaroon ng infection kasi sometimes the cups can paano ba, pwede na lang i-pull yung cervix mo pag hindi mo siya properly natatanggal. So may mga
Yikes.
factors pa.
To the suction.
Yeah,
Oh.
exactly. Sorry, the suction. The
Ow.
suction could hurt your cervix. That's
Ay.
why kung magagamit ka ng menstrual cup, you should be properly informed
Right.
choice. And then we also have period panties, which are rare. I personally don't use one. I'm not yet ready because I feel like parang it's like wearing a diaper, but period panties exist. And then we also have one of the ako talagang pinaka recommend ko is pasador or reusable pad. So basically, you bleed in a cloth, and then after bleeding, clean it, hang it to dry, and then you can reuse it on
Uh-uh.
your next cycle. So those are
Mm-mm.
the available options that we have for menstruators. Yeah.
All right. That was amazing, Ninai. Thank you so much for
Thank
enlightening
you.
us on all there has to do with periods. Ninai has to leave us sadly for now.
Yeah, sorry
But
guys, but thank you
That's
so
okay,
much. I
Nina.
had fun, and I hope you guys continue the conversations, hindi the conversation going hindi lang dito sa now open, but technically out in the open. So I leave you
yes.
guys to it.
All
I leave
right.
you
Let's
guys
Yes.
to
talk
it.
Thank
to
you,
people
Ninai.
about your periods. Nina, before you go, do you want to promote some of your personal like social accounts or the We Bleed Red movement?
Okay, yes. First of all, please do follow We Bleed Red Movement sa Facebook and sa Instagram. It's at webleedred.ph. Usually we count on strangers to donate napkins for us, to us, na ipapadala namin sa mga rural areas for menstruators in need. And then we also do mga informal workshop where we talk about periods as well, menstrual health, menstrual equity, menstrual access, anything about menstruation. And then we also have another project coming up, which is Kwentong Regla. So that's at kwentong.regla, where it's a submission-based platform where menstruators can share their experiences about menstruation because it starts the conversation. Eh. So
Mm-mm.
yun, that's all. And yeah, again, thank you guys. Please start talking about your periods vocally and publicly. Even non-menstruators, isama nyo sila sa conversation.
All right. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much,
so much,
Ninai.
Nina.
Thank you
Everyone really,
guys.
really
Thanks,
appreciates
Ninai.
it. Even our listeners are super, super grateful. So thank you so much. Everyone, say goodbye to Nina.
Bye,
Bye,
Ninai.
Ninai. Thank
Bye.
you.
Good
All right, guys. That was a very I don't know, like I've been menstruating for 20 years and I still learned so much from Ninai. So I'm
I did
extremely grateful.
too.
But
I have never menstruated, and I learned quite a bit.
so what is your main takeaway from tonight, non-menstruator?
That really, the taboos surrounding menstruation are centered around misinformation and
Mm-mm.
quite literal mysticism, right? When we talk about menstruation, it's kind of like the way people used to treat sick illnesses in the dark ages, like
Yeah.
we have to cure their humors by rubbing oranges on their abdomen, that sort of thing. And
Mm-mm.
that's where this idea that women are impure, women are blah, blah, blah. At the same time, I also sense the sort a mild. I don't want to get crucified, right? But I also sensed a mild. What do you call this? Contradiction in that we shouldn't treat women differently because they have their periods, but at the same time, their periods genuinely, truly affect like their hormones and their moods and stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know where to place myself with that because on the one hand, you guys are still human beings who are totally like fine and menstruation is normal. But at the same time, you yourselves acknowledge that menstruating does something to your moods and is something that needs to be acknowledged and is something that needs to be addressed. So, where do we draw the line between respecting it and really, like calling it out for what it is? Like maybe you shouldn't go to work today because you have your dysmenorrhea, dude.
Yeah. I
Like if it's fine for us to say maybe you shouldn't go to work because of dysmenorrhea, shouldn't it be okay for us to say maybe it's your dysmenorrhea for some of the things that you're doing today?
you know what? Like I totally get what you mean about like how do we accommodate people who menstruate, especially considering how much it affects you emotionally and physically as well. Like
Right.
now that I'm getting older, my periods are getting worse. And my dysmenorrhea, I've never had dysmenorrhea in my life. And now it's happening and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is what everyone's talking about.
I didn't know that you could get dysmenorrhea later on in life if you had never previously.
Like it sometimes it changes per period, sometimes it gets worse as you get older because
Not know that.
yeah, so like it changes and we really have to relook about how we look at things like illness and disability in general.
Right.
Because for some people when they're on their period, they're practically disabled by their period.
Right.
And the way we treat that is by having mental health and like vacation and sick leave days that are easy to get.
Right.
So I think my main takeaway is that I'm still that I'm very I'm a lot more educated on periods than I was before the show, but I still have a lot of questions about how we address periods.
You know what? We should have an entire show about that, I think, because like I think that's like a topic that we can talk about at length. How to deal with people who are menstruating, how to work around it, and just be a compassionate.
How to acknowledge it with respect and with propriety.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You have an episode about that. Kai, what is your main takeaway from this?
Mine is that access to period hygiene and period health is unequal, and that we have to be more accommodating and more understanding of the fact that things that are so normal to us might not be options to other people. Like, for example, like, you know, the whole idea of like one thing I was thinking about during the conversation with Ninai is the issue of tampons, and how for me, I did it as like I am a badass, I'm gonna use a tampon. But I know that for some people, like, you know, maybe the whole idea of putting a tampon in their vaginas really scares them. And, you know, I think as part of this conversation on menstruation, I think it's also to talk about the experience around menstruation, in the sense that virginity does matter to some people, and using a tampon that might take away the virginity might scare them, you know? And although it doesn't,
I lost my virginity to a tampon.
Virginity doesn't exist, but then, like, you know, personally, I think that. But I think also the belief surrounding menstruation was something I started to think about a lot as we were talking about, or as we were talking with Ninai throughout the show. Yeah, like just different experiences and beliefs, really, that surround menstruation.
Yeah, I guess for my takeaway, I want to riff off a question of other Trisha, who asked, when or how did it start, though, the stigmatizing of periods? And I guess
Stigmatized.
That's a cool song. We should, like, I think, like, one of the things I really learned is that a lot of this is so culturally ingrained.
Yeah.
And a lot of this is, like, it's from thousands of years ago. You know, we're still treating people who menstruate the same way
and
we
the more
treated
your
them.
culture has something about periods, the more your country is more likely to be backwards about the laws. And misogynist,
for sure.
right.
Like I'm thinking about how to answer Ishimonic's question. I don't know when it started, but I can tell you that it is ingrained even into the Bible, because in Leviticus, which is my favorite book,
Leviticus is the best.
It's the best book ever. Bible, it's so terrible. There are literally rules even in Leviticus for how you treat people who menstruate. So in Leviticus, people who menstruate need to separate themselves from society. Anything they touch,
for she has the blood.
Yeah, so it's like, anybody who's
touches
bleeding
becomes impure.
Exactly. So it's like anyone who's bleeding is impure, as Ninai said, and anything they touch is also impure. So if a person who's menstruating touches like a chair, like this is literally in Leviticus, I think they mentioned like a stool or a chair. If they touch it, you have to burn the chair.
I love imagining the guys who were like writing the Bible, specifically the book of Leviticus, and they were like, all right, here are the rules. Big skin, nope, bad, can't touch that. Men, nope, can't lie with them.
Nope.
What about the ladies who bleed? Yeah. Gross.
They are
Super
disgusting.
Gross.
Need to burn everything they touch. So, and the Bible is thousands of years old, or like 1,000-something years old, and we are still treating periods the exact same way that we were a couple of thousand years ago. And the Bible only wrote it because that was a cultural norm at the time. So you can imagine it goes even way back. So,
and you know, I hate to sound like one of those people online, but the reason that that periods are still so shrouded in mystery is because it's for women, dude.
Yeah,
it's nobody has made it top priority to be like, hey, let's my periods, because it's women.
It's like, fuck them. They can deal with it. No, they're fine.
They've been doing it for centuries. They'll be fine.
You know, so we really have to change the conversation. We have to steer it away from these cultural, religious norms, and we start having to. We just have to look at people who menstruate as people who have rights, people who did not choose this life. If I could stop menstruating today, I would have done it yesterday.
If I could share the menstruation with my girlfriend,
you would?
I would not.
Oh.
That's how much it sucks. That's how much I know it sucks. I'd be like, I know I could share this burden with you, but No.
Fuck that. No, and a lot of people who menstruate feel that way. They're like, fuck, I am saddled with this for the rest of my life. And I
Right.
have to deal with so much stigma and the costs and
Mhm.
everything. And we have to change the conversation. And that conversation
Right.
starts with you. You know, a lot of these things are systemic. A lot of these things we can't change on our own. Like the fact that, you know, OB-GYNs are extremely inaccessible to people. Or the
And a
fact that,
lot of them in the Philippines are old and out of touch.
Right, a lot of
and
them
will share with you their old world like fucking opinions.
right, a lot of them
Oh my God,
are,
yeah.
so many of them are boomers who are really slut shamey and fuck them, you know?
Really slut shamey.
Yeah, they're so slut shamey, and I've gone through
Super.
this. So until we can change that systemic issue, what we can do on our own is to be vocal about our own periods.
Definitely,
Like,
definitely.
Fucking, if you're fucking suffering because of your period, tell people around you so that they know how the period is affecting you, and that they know that this is a reality for a lot of people who menstruate. Fight for yourself when you can. If you can't, that's totally fine. Other people are there to fight for you.
Also, you know, like the just normalizing period. That's also one of my main takeaways. Like normalizing the conversation on periods. Like, I remember, quick kwento, like a few months ago, I had to help my sister. She asked me to help her. Help her put a tampon in. How does she do it? And I'm like, this attic conversation, I'm ready to have it, but I powered through it. I'm like, yeah, let's get it. I'll teach you how to use a tampon. And it was a lot of things happening. And I look back at it now. I'm like, I shouldn't have reacted that way. I shouldn't have reacted like, why? You know, like now that after this episode, I realized like you shouldn't be grossed out about it first and foremost, and second, like you should be able to normalize it. It's not just how we talk about it, but also how you act around it and how you how you express what you think about it, diba? So and another thing about fucking OB-GYNs who are so fucking slut shamey. Holy crap! You know, I had this one OB-GYN who was like, I went with my old fucking with my ex stepmom, my dad's ex, and then she was like, pinapagalitan mo pa ng batang to? And I'm like, that's none of your business.
You're not even my real mom, bitch. Like,
right? Like she was telling my fucking stepmom, pinapagalitan mo pa ng batang to? And I'm like,
yeah, I know. Fuck that. Fuck OB-GYNs who are like that. I feel like we should have an entire episode about bad
Find a young OB.
But you know what? That's not even a guarantee.
Oh, that's true.
You know,
that's
find an OB if you can who is aligned with your values.
So last week we got sidetracked and we completely forgot to give you guys a weekly assignment, although we had one.
We totally had one. We picked it out of a jar.
Yeah, and it was Kegels.
Yes.
And we did not give it, but would you guys like to share your experiences with Kegels?
Okay, yes. So this week's next assignment is to try Kegels, whether you have a penis or a vagina.
Are we making this week's assignment?
Yeah, we are making it this
so
week's assignment because we missed out on it
yeah.
last week. So this week's assignment is about Kegels. My personal experience with Kegels is that I learned about it when I was like 10, 11 years old. And then I immediately, yeah, because I just Googled a lot as a child, you know? Like if I wanted to know about...
Where the fuck did 10-year-old you see the word Kegels to Google?
Wikipedia.
What? I have so many
swear
questions.
to God.
All right. I don't want to know what you were doing on Wikipedia.
Yeah,
Being like,
no,
Kegels.
like literally, I would spend
10-year-old
hours
Trisha.
just Googling and Wikipediaing various sex ed concepts as a child.
mm-mm,
So
mm-mm,
Kegels was one thing I stumbled upon at some point somehow.
mm-mm.
And I literally started doing it immediately. Like I would just practice. I would put the weirdest things in my vagina, like pentel pens and shit. Don't do that. But I would put random shit in my vagina and I would like just practice. I'd be like, no. I would just do that repetitively.
And now that's how I weigh my luggage.
Yep, that's why I got my gorilla grip. But yes. Kai, do you have
I have no experience. I know what they are, but I have no experience using them because I mean, like I've seen them around, and like I had this phase in my life where I was just always like every time I'd get a little bit of money, I'd kind of like just chip it up into like a sex toy. And at one point, I was like, I might get a Kegel. But I was like, it's weights for my vagina. I don't even like lifting weights, so why would I put weights in my vagina? But you know what? I'm older now. I'm wiser. Maybe we can give it a shot. Okay, I'm down. I'm gonna purchase one from Ilya, and I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try it.
So Jupim, you are a person with a penis, and a lot of people don't know this.
So
but
Kegels,
you can do Kegels.
Kegels were like a thing that was developed by some like dude in the 20th century, right? His name is Kegel.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. That's not true.
No,
I
sir.
Fuck you.
Anyway,
I was like, oh.
so Kegels are an exercise that are largely done by women, but men can do Kegels too. And doing Kegels regularly actually helps with like the strength of your orgasm.
And incontinence as well. So incontinence is like your ability to not pee yourself.
Yes. Okay. So
Ooh.
one of the ways you can practice doing Kegels, which is actually kind of bad for your
You're peeing.
your peeing, is like when you really need to pee, right? When you're like full stream and you're peeing, stop the pee. And the clenching of the butthole, that sensation of you clenching the butthole to stop your pee, is similar to you doing a male Kegel. Now, if you can replicate that sensation when you're not peeing, to squeeze your butthole, you're actually doing a male Kegel, which I don't know. I read somewhere it does something to your prostate or some bullshit. I don't know. Don't take my word for it, but I can attest to the fact that since I started doing male Kegels, I started doing it in my teens, I think. I have enjoyed very powerful orgasms.
Wait, you've been doing Kegels like ever since, like consistently?
Not consistently, no.
Okay.
I will do it every once in a while. Like if I'm doing it, look right now. Look,
Yeah, I'll do it now too.
I did it.
Is that the face you make when you make a Kegel? You do a Kegel?
I don't know what
It
you're
just
talking
happens.
about. I don't make any
You
face.
just-
I made a face. I was like, I don't know.
There,
just
so you
know
you
in
can't
random
even
moments.
tell that I'm doing it.
No, you totally have a face. So if you're
Totally
listening
discreet.
right now and you're listening on Spotify, Jobim is totally doing a Kegel face. But
No, they're liars.
So yeah, like this week, try out Kegels. It can really help with your orgasms because if you think about it, everything down there is like a muscle, and it's kind of like doing dumbbell curls or whatever. The more you lift weights, the more like you lose. If you don't use it, you lose it. So just try to use your pelvic muscles, and it comes with a lot of health benefits, not just orgasms. Again, it can really help you with incontinence and later in life.
Have you ever
Okay.
been hard and then made your penis do this? Because
No.
women love it when you
No, I love that though.
women love it when
No.
you do that for some weird reason.
Yeah, because I think it's really
It's like a
fascinating.
fucking party trick. Women are like, do the thing, and I'm like,
No, I I kind of love the thing, not because it feels better, but because you're like, ooh, ooh.
women always grab it like it's a fucking Atari controller, and they're like, do it again. Anyway, so like every time you do that, that's actually a male Kegel. That's what you're doing when you flex your
When
penis.
you pulse your dick.
When you pulse your dick, you're doing
Okay.
kind of a male Kegel. So
yeah,
because
That's basically dick
involuntarily, it is dick Pilates. It's involuntarily what your penis does when you orgasm. So when you train it to do that, the muscles that flex when you're coming flex super hard.
yeah, because now it has muscle around it.
Yeah. So
Now it's trained. So that is your sex assignment for the week. Try Kegels. We're going to be doing it throughout the week as well. So make sure to tune in next week to tell us all about your Kegel journey. All right. So we are wrapping up this episode. We really want to thank everyone who has joined us tonight. I'm just going to do a really quick shout out of everyone who left a comment. So first things first, hello to everyone who lurks. I know there's quite a few of you. Don't worry, we love you as well. But we especially love the people who comment. So we got Jade, other
Nick was
Trisha,
the only dude.
Nick, or Jade or Jude. I don't know what you are. Sorry. Nika. Oh, we got two Trishas in here. Ruth, Kim, Zar, Daryl, Jana, Tin, our lovely social media manager as well. Graciela, love your name. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Yeah, that is everybody who commented tonight. Thank you so much for joining us for yet another episode of Now Open. You can join us next week for a conversation I'm so excited for. So if you are angry about the fact that LGBTQ narratives, especially in the Philippines, are still quite lacking in how they represent the community, you need to tune in next week. We have Juan Miguel Severo of Gaya sa Pelikula, apparently, as well as Rachel Coates from Pearl Next Door to school us on how to do it right, how to bring queer stories.
Is Juan Miguel
to life.
Severo gay?
You'll have to ask him that.
I don't want to ask him that. That seems really inappropriate.
Also, it's not really a question we're supposed to ask anymore because it's like, you know what? It's like asking someone, "Are you straight?" Like that's not a question. Straight.
I've gotten asked that.
Fair, but because people thought you were gay.
People assume I'm gay quite in a bit, actually.
So yeah, we have some lovely people on next week's episode, March 9, same time, same place. You guys want to promote your personal socials?
Yes, I am on the Instagram as Jobim Javier, and I also have a Twitter's at Jobimism, JOBIMISM, and I also host a radio show every week on Jam 88.3 called The Morning Show.
Morning show.
Love it. So make sure to tune into that. Kai, your personal promotions?
That is XOXCAI on Twitter and Instagram.
Awesome. And I am at Trisha O'Bannon on Twitter. But of course, we would love for you to follow Now Open wherever we are on the internet, which is many places, apparently. We are on Facebook where you're watching now, if you are watching from Facebook. We're also on Twitter at NowOpenPH. We are on Coffee as well. If you want to see some extra content, that's coffee.com/NowOpenPH. You can sign up for a monthly subscription for just 150 pesos a month. For the price of a Starbucks coffee, you can get extra content, exclusive access to our Discord channel, which I will leave a link to in the comments. And if you're listening outside of Facebook, it's going to be in the description for the episode. So if you want to hang out with us on not Tuesday, you can catch us on Discord a few times a week. Of course, if you're listening to this back, you may already be on a podcast platform like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. But if not, you can listen to our past episodes on Spotify and wherever else you listen to podcasts. So I'll leave a link to that as well in the comments. And I am so glad to announce we've just recently uploaded, I believe, 4 episodes. So we are now up to episode 12 on the Spotify, and we will be uploading more of the episodes throughout the week and next week as they get edited. So you can listen back and hear how awful we are in the first 10, 15 episodes of the show.
Discord days.
I think it was
Clean
Bono.
feed days.
If you want to torture me, strap me to a chair and make me watch my first 5 music videos.
Oh, yeah. I kind of refuse to listen to our earlier episodes because the audio quality is so bad. But if you have gotten through that, thank you so much. We guarantee that at some point the audio gets better. So thank you everyone again who joined us tonight. It was an incredibly illuminating and enriching discussion.
Eye opener
for you, especially as a non-menstruator. And don't worry, there's still so much to talk about periods, so we will cover more.
I have seen a vagina.
Ninai, the shade.
I have a child, which means I've seen a vag at least once.
You heard it first here. Jobim has seen vaginas. All right, thank you everyone who joined us tonight.
Bye,
we will see you again next week for our amazing episode on bringing queer stories to life. So see y'all when we next open.
Bye.